Ukraine is warning that its troops may have to pull out of their last pocket of resistance in the eastern Luhansk region to avoid being surrounded by Russian forces. These satellite images show the aftermath of the recent bombardments in eastern Ukraine, where pro-Russia separatists say they've taken the strategic railway hub of Lyman. Russian forces are also advancing from 3 directions on the nearby twin cities of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. Ukrainian-controlled cities in the region have come under relentless bombardment. Well, US President Joe Biden accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of working to eradicate Ukrainian identity.
Putin's brutal war in Ukraine, not only is he trying to take over Ukraine, he's literally trying to wipe out the culture and identity of the Ukrainian people. Attacking schools, nurseries, hospitals, museums, with no other purpose than to eliminate a culture. A direct assault on the fundamental tenets of rule-based international order.
All right, well, let's go to the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, where DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters is standing by. Hi, Rebecca, good to see you. Now, Ukraine's military leadership is saying its forces may need to retreat from some positions in the east of the country. What can you tell us about the situation there now?
Well, the situation in the Donbas is really not going in the way of the Ukrainian side. They've already admitted a couple of days ago that they've lost the upper hand in that region, that Russia is overpowering them. And now, as you've been reporting, the mayor of Luhansk saying that Ukrainian troops will likely have to pull out of that area in that last Ukrainian stronghold city of Severodonetsk, as the Russians are just pushing forward and advancing and will soon encircle that city. So in order to have the troops not be encircled as well, they're going to potentially pull back and shore up defence lines further behind in Ukrainian territory. But President Zelenskyy has been at pains to say that even if the Russians do overtake this area, take over Donbas, as is looking likely, it's not going to be forever, and the Ukrainians will fight back when they have more weaponry. Here's what he had to say in his address last night.
We are protecting our land the way that our current defense resources allow us. We are doing everything to reinforce it, and we will reinforce it. If the occupiers think that Lyman and Severodonetsk will be theirs, they are wrong. The Donbas will be Ukrainian because it's us, it's our essence. Even if Russia brings destruction and suffering there, we will rebuild every city and every community. There is no, and there will be no, real alternative to our Ukrainian flag.
So, Rebecca, the Ukrainian president saying he'll reinforce his troops, but does he have enough military equipment to do that?
Well, the short answer is no, Pablo. I mean, President Zelenskyy really defiant there, really, showing words of strength. But at the end of the day, they just are completely outnumbered when it comes to heavy weapons. And that's what they've been saying for weeks. In fact, since the beginning of this conflict, this war, they've been calling for more support from the international community when it comes to heavy weaponry. And they did see some response from the international community, particularly from the US. And they were getting lots of weapons, but they need more, they say, in order to be able to push back the Russians. Russia just has so much more when it comes to tanks and artillery and these huge missiles and stuff that Ukraine it's a bit of a David and Goliath battle, if you will. And President Zelenskyy, the foreign minister here, and really the entire Ukrainian side just calling for more weaponry because they are outnumbered, and without that weaponry they won't be able to hold the Russians back.
Rebecca, what can you tell us about the civilians that are still holding out in these towns in the east? I mean, we reported yesterday that many of them are hiding in basements.
Well, that's right. I mean, the situation down there for civilians is incredibly dire. I mean, everyone has been following along with Mariupol, knowing that everyone was living in bunkers, and the similar thing is happening there in the Donbas. And this region has been bombarded for months. The civilians there have been living without electricity and other utilities for weeks, even months now, and they are having to live largely underground in bomb shelters as the Russians continue to bombard. They're now running out of food, medicines, and of course it's it's incredibly difficult, almost impossible now to get humanitarian aid into those areas. A couple of days ago was still possible through some roads in Ukrainian territory, but those last remaining roads are just being completely bombarded, so it's too dangerous now to get aid in. So, you know, the situation there for civilians on the ground is, you know, nothing short of dire. They are living day and night. The people that have stayed behind are, of course, some people who've chosen to stay behind, but obviously a lot of people who just weren't able to get out, so people who are disabled or elderly. So the situation for them, you know, it just doesn't bear thinking about.
DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters in Kyiv. Thank you.